Hello and welcome to the Bible Difficulties and Answers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Smith. Now, sometimes we take little detours from our usual biblical timeline to explore other interesting areas, and we call these episodes sidebars. But today we're doing something special. We're taking a mid-year review to see how this podcast is doing so far. So we're going to dive into some numbers and have a little bit of fun with it. After 35 years in the corporate world, I became adept at analyzing numbers. Now data analysis is my comfort zone, and it always has a fascinating story to tell. But first, a quick recap. On November 20th, 2023, we launched the trailer for our series, Bible Difficulties and Answers. We then rolled out 5 introductory episodes, laying the foundation with topics like Christian apologetics, the cosmological argument, the fine-tuning of the universe argument, the moral argument, and is the New Testament reliable? Since January, we've tackled 26 difficult verses from Genesis, with 36 more episodes planned before we reach Exodus. It's a long journey ahead, potentially spanning over a decade to work our way through the Bible, and I couldn't be more excited. This podcast started as my retirement hobby and has blossomed into a real passion project. The research, writing, editing, and recording keep my mind active and allow me to spend more time in the Scripture, and that's a true win-win. Now let's talk numbers. In the first 6 months of this year, we released 26 full episodes and 1 sidebar episode, totaling 3,207 downloads. Since February, our downloads have been on the rise each month, and we're now averaging almost 119 downloads per episode. That's more than double our average of 55 downloads per episode at the end of last year. Our next goal is 130 downloads per episode, so let's keep spreading the word. Our listeners just aren't in the United States. We've got downloads from 18 different countries. Shout out to our top 5 countries with international listeners: Australia, Norway, New Zealand, Germany, and Spain. It's amazing and unexpected to have such a diverse audience. Within the United States, Georgia leads in downloads, followed by Florida, California, North Carolina, Indiana, and South Carolina. We've reached 36 states and the District of Columbia so far. The same for all 50, and we can do that with your help in spreading the word. You might be wondering about the podcast platform the listeners are using for this podcast. I make it available to most every podcasting platform I can find. For the first 6 months of this year, Apple Podcasts leads with 26% of the downloads, followed by Spotify at 16%, Google Chrome at 15%, Podbean at 10%, and Safari at 5%. Since Google Chrome and Safari are browsers, if you wanted to know the next 2 biggest podcatcher apps in the list, they are Audible and iHeartRadio at 3% each. All total, we have 35 different platforms utilized by our listeners worldwide. Now, through the first 6 months of the year, our most downloaded episode was the April 12th podcast of Genesis 4:17 Part 2, Incest or Necessity. This episode explored how Cain could marry a relative without committing incest. Next was the February 23rd Genesis 2:17 episode, Why Didn't Adam Die the Day He Ate the Forbidden Fruit? This was followed by the April 5th episode of Genesis 4:17 Part 1, exploring Cain's wife unraveling a biblical mystery. The 4th most downloaded episode was the March 29th podcast of Genesis 4:12 through 13. Why wasn't Cain given capital punishment for the murder he committed? And lastly, our 5th most downloaded episode so far this year was the January 12th episode of Genesis 1:14. How could there be light before the sun was made? It's fascinating to see the topics that resonate most with you all. 3 of our top 5 episodes involve Cain, which might indicate a gap in church teachings that listeners are eager to fill. And it looks like Friday is the day most of you tune in, with episodes dropping at 3 a.m. Eastern Time and the most downloads occurring around 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Perfect timing for your morning routine or commute. Now that's a wrap on our mid-year review. Remember, this podcast thrives because of you, our listeners. Keep sharing with your friends, and let's continue exploring Bible complexities together. In our next episode, we'll delve into Genesis 9:3. Did God ordain the eating of meat or only plants? Join us as we explore this intriguing question. You may reach out to us at our website, BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers.podbean.com, or you may reach out to me directly at our email address, BibleDifficultiesAndAnswers@gmail.com, with any questions, comments, concerns, fits of righteous indignation, or just to say hi. Also, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell a friend or two as well. And also write a review and give it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, YouTube, or any of your venues of choice. It really does help get the word out about the most amazing book ever written. Again, I'm Lance Smith. Until next time, I wish you good luck, good health, and God bless. So long, everybody.